Under the cold light of a flickering street lamp, rain tapped gently on Emily's coat as she stood outside the old hospital gates. 5 years. That's how long it had been since they declared her mentally unfit. 5 years since she walked away with trembling hands and a broken heart, carrying nothing but disbelief in her own sanity. She could still remember the doctor's cold tone, the pity in her mother's eyes, the laughter of her friends fading behind her. That night, something inside her died, but something else quietly came alive, a voice that whispered, "You'll come back stronger." Before we begin, welcome to Heartline Stories, where we share real, emotional, and life-changing experiences that touch your soul. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and stay till the end, because this story might just change how you see strength, pain, and hope. Emily took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy gate. The rain-soaked metal creaked as if recognizing her. The same path, the same smell of wet leaves, but a completely different woman walking through it now. She was no longer the scared girl who doubted herself. She was someone who had learned to rebuild her mind, her spirit, and her life from ashes. Back then, they said she couldn't survive alone. They said she was too fragile, too emotional, too weak to handle the world. But what they didn't know is that pain can be a teacher, the kind that doesn't speak softly. It screams until you listen. And Emily had listened. There were nights when she sat by the window of her tiny apartment, staring at city lights that looked like distant stars. She used to whisper to herself, "You're not broken, you're just becoming." Her fingers would shake as she wrote in her journal, pages filled with tears, rage, and courage. Slowly, letter by letter, she was rewriting her story. Now, as she entered the hospital courtyard, her reflection stared back from a rain puddle. The woman in the reflection had the same eyes, but they carried fire instead of fear. Her heart pounded. Every step she took was a confrontation with her past. The walls around her whispered old voices, "She's lost, she's crazy, she'll never come back." She smiled softly. "I'm back," she whispered. The moment she stepped inside, her memories crashed like thunder. The white halls, the faint smell of medicine, the echo of distant footsteps, it all came flooding back. She could almost hear herself crying in one of those rooms, begging to be believed. But now she walked with a calm defiance, her eyes sharp, her breathing steady. "Can I help you?" a nurse asked gently. Emily looked up. The nurse's face was kind but unfamiliar. "I used to be a patient here," Emily said softly. 5 years ago. I just wanted to see it again." The nurse nodded slowly. "You must have been through a lot." Emily smiled. "Yes, but I made it." As she walked through the corridor, she passed by the room where it all started, the therapy room. She could still see the table where they'd made her sit, the pen she threw when they called her delusional. She stepped closer, pressing her hand against the door. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but not of weakness, of gratitude. Because without that pain, she would have never learned how strong she truly was. There was a time when Emily didn't know how to breathe without fear. She used to wake up shaking, her mind filled with voices that told her she'd never be enough. But now, her silence was her strength. The world had tried to define her, but she had redefined herself. 5 years of therapy, reflection, sleepless nights, and rebuilding her confidence had turned her into someone unstoppable. She'd started painting again, colors that once felt too bright for her world now poured out of her brushes like hope reborn. She'd started talking to people again, not because she needed to prove herself, but because she wanted to understand others who were still lost like she once was. Standing there, she realized something powerful. No one needed to believe in her. She just had to believe in herself. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered to her younger self, "You did it. You're home." The rain outside began to ease. Through the window, a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and landed softly on her face, like the universe itself was acknowledging her victory. She took out her phone and recorded a short message, her voice steady yet emotional. "To everyone who's ever been told they're not enough," she began, "I want you to know your pain does not define you. Your scars are not shameful. They're proof that you fought and survived. People will doubt you, call you names, make you question your worth, But remember, no one else gets to write your ending but you. Her voice cracked a little, but she smiled through it. You are not broken. You are becoming. She hit stop, took a deep breath, and walked out of the building for the last time. The air outside smelled fresh, free. The same gate that once marked her fall now marked her rise. She didn't look back this time. As she walked away, her reflection disappeared into the puddle, not because she was gone, but because she was whole. Thank you for watching this story of courage and transformation. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartline's Stories for more emotional and inspiring tales. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and what's one moment that changed your life forever? Because sometimes, the biggest victories are the ones no one sees, except your own heart. The sound of her footsteps echoed softly against the wet pavement as Emily walked away from the hospital. Each step felt lighter, as if the ground itself was welcoming her back to the world she once feared to face. But beneath her calm expression, her heart trembled. Freedom, she realized, wasn't the end of the journey, it was just another beginning. That night, she returned to her small apartment, the same one she had built piece by piece when she had nothing but hope. The walls were covered with sketches, brush strokes of fire and blue sky, half-finished dreams on canvas. The smell of paint and coffee filled the room. She dropped her bag, took off her coat, and stood silently by the window. Raindrops still chased each other down the glass. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her mind wandered to the people who never believed she'd make it this far. She thought of her mother, the woman who once looked at her with eyes full of doubt and whispered to neighbors that her daughter had lost her mind. Emily never blamed her. Pain makes people speak things they don't mean. But still, that memory hurt. Somewhere deep down, she still longed to hear her mother say she was proud. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Her finger hovered over her mother's name. For years, that name had been a symbol of both love and pain. Her thumb trembled, and then she pressed call. It rang once, twice, and then a familiar voice answered. Hello. Emily's voice cracked. Mom, it's me. There was silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than words. For a moment, Emily thought she'd hang up. But then she heard a small, shaky breath from the other side. Emily? Yes, she whispered. I came back. Her mother didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and uncertain. They said you were gone. They said you wouldn't come back. I know, Emily said, her eyes filling with tears. But I did. I fought for my mind. I fought for myself. A faint sob echoed through the line. Her mother was crying. I'm sorry, she said, over and over. I was scared, Emily. I didn't know how to help you. Emily's hand shook as she wiped her tears. I know, Mom. You don't have to apologize. I wanted you to know that I made it. That night, Emily didn't sleep. She sat by the window until the city lights faded into dawn. She realized that sometimes healing isn't about forgetting, it's about forgiving, even when the world never says sorry. The next morning, she decided to visit the art gallery downtown. Years ago, they had rejected her first painting, telling her that her work was too emotional, too dark, too unstable. She smiled at the irony. Back then, their words had crushed her. Now, they fueled her. The gallery was crowded with laughter, footsteps, and the faint sound of jazz music. Emily stood quietly in the corner, holding her latest painting, a portrait of a woman standing in the rain, half her face hidden, half glowing in the light. The title read, Becoming. When the curator approached, he paused to look at the painting. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, slowly, he said, There's pain here, but also peace. It feels alive. Emily smiled faintly. It is. It's my story. He nodded. Would you consider displaying it? I think people need to see this. For a second, Emily froze. Her breath caught in her throat. They need to see this. The words echoed in her chest like a heartbeat. She nodded slowly. Yes, I'd love that. That night, when her painting hung on the gallery wall, Emily stood at a distance watching people stop, stare, and whisper. Some wiped their tears, others smiled softly. For the first time, she realized she didn't need validation, but it still felt beautiful to know her story touched hearts she didn't even know. But behind that proud smile, there was still one corner of her heart that felt heavy, the memory of the man who left when she needed him most. Ethan. He had promised to stay, to hold her through the storms. But when the world called her unstable, he walked away without a word. That night, she opened her old box of letters, faded pages she had written but never sent. One of them was addressed to him. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. You once told me I was too much, too emotional, too fragile. Maybe you were right. But it was that same emotion that saved me. It was that same fragility that taught me strength. You saw my pain as weakness, but I see it now as proof that I survived something you never understood. She folded the letter, smiled, and burned it gently in a small glass bowl. Watching the ashes rise, she whispered, "Goodbye." That single word didn't just close a chapter, it opened a new one. She felt lighter, freer, like the chains of her past had finally turned to dust. Days turned into weeks. Emily began sharing her journey online, telling others who felt trapped inside their own minds that healing was not linear. Some days you break, some days you bloom. Her videos began to spread, not because of perfect lighting or polished words, but because her voice was real. Her pain had purpose now. One night, she received a message from a stranger that said, "Your story saved me. I was about to give up, but you made me believe again." Emily read those words again and again, tears streaming down her face. That was it. That was her purpose. Not to prove anyone wrong, but to remind others that no matter how broken they feel, they are still capable of light. The rain began again outside her window. She walked to her mirror, looked into her own eyes, and for the first time in years, she saw peace. Not perfection, not fear, just peace. She turned on her camera once more, her voice soft but filled with emotion. To everyone listening, she said, "Your past doesn't define your future. You are not your mistakes. You are not your diagnosis. You are the story you choose to tell yourself every morning. And if you're standing in the dark right now, remember, even the sun has to disappear before it rises again." She smiled through her tears. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Heartline Stories for more journeys like this one. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and never forget, healing begins the moment you decide you deserve peace. She looked at the camera one last time, whispered a quiet "thank you," and turned it off. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, painting the city gold, and for the first time, Emily didn't just survive. She lived. The first rays of sunlight spilled gently through the half-open curtains, brushing Emily's face with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She stood silently, looking at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the broken girl who once questioned her worth. She was someone reborn through pain, molded by every tear, every lonely night, every "you can't" she had turned into "watch me." For the first time, her heart felt calm. Yet deep inside, there was a quiet voice that whispered, "This isn't the end." Healing, she knew, wasn't a straight road. It was a spiral, one that sometimes took her back to the same memories, the same fears, just to test if she could face them differently this time. That morning, she picked up her phone and scrolled through her inbox. Hundreds of messages. Strangers thanking her for sharing her story, for giving them courage. One message caught her attention. It was from someone named Sophie. The message read, "I've been in a hospital for months. They say I'm not ready to face the world yet. But when I watched your story, something changed. I want to live again. Thank you for making me believe that broken doesn't mean finished." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She held her phone to her chest and whispered, "You're not finished, Sophie. You're just beginning." That message stayed in her mind all day. It reminded her of the girl she once was, lost, terrified, and desperate to feel understood. Maybe this was why she went through all of it, so she could reach others who were still trapped in the darkness she had escaped. She decided to reply, "Sophie, you're not alone. The world may have told you you're not ready, but sometimes it's okay to take small steps. Healing doesn't have to be loud or fast. Just breathe. You're already stronger than you think. After sending the message, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. A soft smile touched her lips. She had turned her pain into purpose, and that, she thought, was the greatest victory of all. Later that evening, Emily went for a walk near the park. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and children laughed in the distance. She sat on a bench and looked around, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. But just as she started to relax, a familiar voice echoed behind her. "Emily?" Her heart skipped. She turned, and for a moment, time froze. It was Ethan, the man who had walked away when she needed him most. His hair was shorter now, his eyes older, softer, but still the same shade of blue that once made her feel safe. She froze, unsure whether to smile or walk away. He took a cautious step closer. "I saw your story online," he said quietly. "I didn't know what to say. You look different." Emily's lips parted slightly. Her voice was calm, but her heartbeat wasn't. "Different?" she asked. He nodded. "Stronger. Braver. Happier." A bitter laugh escaped her. "You left when I was at my weakest, Ethan. When everyone else called me broken, you didn't even try to understand." His eyes dropped to the ground. "I know. And I've hated myself for it every day since. I was scared, Emily. I didn't know how to help you. So I ran." She took a deep breath, looking at the man who once defined her happiness. "Do you know what hurt the most?" she asked softly. "Not that you left, but that you made me believe I wasn't worth staying for." The air grew heavy between them. Ethan's eyes glistened. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I came to tell you that I was wrong. You were never weak." "I was." For a long moment, Emily said nothing. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of rain. She could feel her heart shaking, not with anger, but with release. The past no longer had power over her. She looked him in the eyes and said quietly, "I forgive you." Ethan blinked, stunned. "You do?" "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "Because holding on to hate would mean I'm still trapped in that pain. And I'm done being trapped." He smiled faintly, tears rolling down his face. "You've become someone incredible, Emily." She smiled back. "I always was. I just had to find her." They stood there for a while, two people who once shared a story, now standing at the end of it with peace in their hearts. And as Ethan walked away, Emily realized something powerful. Closure doesn't come when someone apologizes. It comes when you choose to let go. That night, she sat in her studio again, painting under the soft glow of the lamp. Her brush moved slowly, creating waves of blue and gold that blended into a horizon, a symbol of endings and beginnings. As she painted, she whispered, "Every ending is just a quieter kind of beginning." Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Sophie. "I smiled today for the first time in months. I even drew something. Thank you for reminding me that I matter." Emily's heart swelled. She took a deep breath and began recording another video. "Hey everyone," she said softly, her voice trembling with warmth. "A lot of you have asked how I keep moving forward. The truth is, I don't always know. Some days I fall apart. Some days I cry. But every day I choose to get back up. And that's what healing looks like, not perfection, just persistence." She paused, her eyes glistening. "If you're listening right now, I want you to promise me something. Don't give up on yourself. Even when the world turns its back, even when your own reflection feels like a stranger, keep fighting. Because you are worth it. You always were." Her voice cracked, but she continued, "And if you ever feel alone, remember someone like me is rooting for you. We may not know each other, but our pain connects us. And our healing will, too." She took a deep breath and smiled softly into the camera. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and never forget, you are not broken. You are becoming. She turned off the camera, leaned back in her chair, and looked at her finished painting, a sunrise stretching over calm water. It wasn't just art, it was her soul on canvas. Outside, the city slept peacefully. And in that stillness, Emily whispered to herself, maybe the hardest battles are the ones no one sees. But that's okay, because the quiet victories belong to me. For the first time, she didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She was enough. She always had been. The city was quiet, wrapped in the kind of stillness that only comes after rain. Emily stood by her window, the lights of passing cars reflecting in her eyes like small reminders that life never really stops. It just keeps moving, even when your heart doesn't know how to. She touched the cool glass and whispered, almost to herself, I made it this far, but what now? The question hung in the air like a ghost. It wasn't sadness she felt this time. It was something deeper, something that came after the storm, the strange emptiness of peace. She had fought, she had cried, she had rebuilt herself piece by piece. But healing, she realized, wasn't about winning, it was about learning how to live again without fear. The painting she had finished the night before sat on the easel beside her, a sunrise breaking over calm waters. It wasn't just a picture, it was a reflection of her journey. The dark blues of her past blending into the gold of her future. She reached out and brushed her fingers across the canvas. You were my story, she whispered, but now it's time to write a new one. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Sophie. I went outside today. It was scary, but I did it. The world didn't look as bad as I thought. Emily smiled softly. That small victory filled her heart with warmth. This is why I'm still here, she thought. This is why I keep going. But deep inside, there was still that quiet ache, the one that came at night when everything else went silent. It wasn't about Ethan anymore. It wasn't about her past. It was about something bigger, learning how to love herself without conditions, without needing someone to validate her worth. She looked around her small apartment, paintings lined up against the wall, her camera on the desk, her old journals stacked beside her bed. Each object carried a piece of who she used to be. The woman who had once waited for others to save her. The one who had begged to be seen, to be loved. But that woman was gone. Now, she stood there as someone new, someone who didn't need to be chosen, because she had already chosen herself. The rain started again, softly this time, like the sky was whispering its own kind of forgiveness. Emily wrapped herself in her shawl and stepped out onto the balcony. Drops of water kissed her face as she looked up, letting the rain wash away the last fragments of her fear. I'm not afraid anymore, she whispered. Not of being alone. Not of losing people. Not of starting again. That night, she sat down to write. Not a story for the channel this time, just a letter to herself. Dear Emily, you did it. You faced every demon they said would destroy you. You walked through fire and came out with light in your hands. You are no longer defined by pain, but by what you created from it. You turned your wounds into wings. And even when your voice trembled, you still spoke your truth. You are enough. You always were. She folded the letter and placed it in her journal. It wasn't for anyone else to read, it was her quiet promise to herself. A few days later, she received another email, this time from a producer of a podcast that focused on mental strength and emotional recovery. They wanted her to share her story. At first, she hesitated. The thought of speaking to thousands of people scared her. What if her voice broke? What if she wasn't ready? But then she remembered how she had once spoken into a camera with trembling hands, and that video had changed lives. So she said yes. The day of the interview, Emily sat in front of the microphone, her palms slightly sweaty, but her heart steady. The host greeted her warmly. Emily, your story has touched so many. What would you say to someone who's still in that place of fear, who feels like they can't start over? Emily took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment before speaking. Her voice was calm, filled with both pain and power. I'd tell them that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the signal that you're alive, that your story isn't over yet. Every time you face what scares you, you take back a piece of your freedom. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about learning to live fully even with the scars. There was silence for a moment, the kind that holds weight. Then the host said softly, "That's beautiful." When the interview ended, Emily walked home under a pale moon. The air smelled of jasmine and wet pavement. She felt lighter, as if every word she had spoken had freed another part of her soul. That night, She recorded a message for her audience, her voice carrying that same quiet strength. Hey everyone, it's Emily. Tonight, I want to say something simple but true. Healing doesn't make you perfect, it makes you real. You'll still have bad days, you'll still cry sometimes, but those tears won't drown you anymore. They'll cleanse you. They'll remind you that you're still human. She paused, her eyes shining with emotion. And if you're watching this right now, please remember, you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are what survives, what grows, what learns to love again. She smiled softly into the camera, her voice trembling with warmth. If my story gives you hope, if it makes you feel a little less alone, please like, share, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Tell me where you're watching from and what gave you strength this week. Because together, we heal faster. When she stopped recording, there was a strange silence, a peaceful kind of silence. She closed her eyes and felt it fully. That calm was something she had never known before. It was the calm that comes after choosing yourself over and over again. The next morning, Emily woke to find her video had gone viral. Thousands of comments poured in, people sharing their own battles, their own pain, their own small victories. I told my husband I need help. I finally forgave my mother. I looked in the mirror and didn't hate what I saw. She read every single comment, tears falling freely. This wasn't just her story anymore, it was theirs. Every heart that beat through pain, every soul that refused to give up. Later that evening, she took her camera and walked to the rooftop. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold. She pressed record one more time. I used to think healing meant becoming who I was before the pain, she said quietly. But now I know it means becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone wiser. The version of you that pain tried to destroy is the version that will rise and shine brighter than ever. She smiled, the kind of smile that comes from the soul. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for walking this journey with me. Keep believing. Keep healing. And never forget, you are enough, exactly as you are. The video ended, but the moment stayed. The wind brushed her hair, the sun disappeared beyond the city, and Emily whispered to herself one last time, this is not the end. It's just the next beginning. The sky was turning orange as Emily stood on that same rooftop, watching the city breathe beneath her feet. The video she had just posted was spreading faster than she could imagine, thousands of hearts, thousands of stories, all connecting through the same thread of pain and courage. But as she stood there, her chest rose with something she hadn't felt in years, peace. The kind that doesn't come from winning, but from accepting. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself this time. I'm not running. I'm staying. The words felt heavy but freeing. She had run her whole life, from memories, from heartbreak, from her own reflection. But now, for the first time, she wasn't afraid to stand still. The wind brushed against her face, warm and alive, as if the universe was saying, finally, you made it home. Her phone buzzed again, notifications, comments, messages from strangers who somehow felt like family now. One message caught her eye. I lost my sister last year. Your words helped me breathe again. Thank you for reminding me that life doesn't end with pain. Emily's eyes filled. That one line hit her harder than anything else. She had spoken into the dark hoping someone would hear her, but now she realized they were all speaking back. Healing wasn't one voice shouting, it was 1,000 voices whispering together, me too. She sat down, legs crossed, and opened her journal. The pages were full of the past, confessions, heartbreaks, and silent prayers. But tonight, she wanted to write something new. To whoever is still fighting, she began, her pen shaking. Please don't give up. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every scar, every tear, every sleepless night is teaching you how to rise. Her tears fell softly on the paper, blurring her words, but she didn't stop writing. The pages didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to be true. Later that evening, she went live on her channel. The chat filled instantly. Emily, I watched your video 5 times. Your voice feels like home. I was about to give up today. Then I saw your story. She smiled gently at the camera, brushing away a tear. Hey everyone. Thank you for being here again. You know, Sometimes I think I'm the one helping you, but it's you who keeps me going. Every message, every story you share reminds me why I started." She paused, her voice softening. "Let me tell you something honest. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days I wake up strong. Some days I just sit and stare at the ceiling, wondering if I've really changed. But even on those days, I remind myself, the fact that I'm still here, still breathing, still trying, that's enough." The chat slowed down as if everyone was holding their breath. Emily looked into the camera, her eyes glistening. "And if you're watching this, wherever you are, know that you matter. You are seen. You are loved. Even if no one has told you that lately, I'm telling you now." She placed her hand over her heart. "You're not alone anymore." There was silence, the kind that didn't feel empty, but full. Full of connection, full of hope. After the stream ended, Emily sat there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the black screen. For years, she had hated that reflection. But tonight, she smiled at it, not because everything was perfect, but because she finally understood that she didn't need perfection to be worthy. The next morning, she decided to do something brave. She packed her bag, grabbed her camera, and took a train to the coast. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks filled her with something raw and real. She took off her shoes, feeling the cold water touch her feet. Every drop felt like a memory washing away. She whispered, "This is where I let go." The wind caught her words, carrying them far into the horizon. She closed her eyes, let her tears fall, and felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Not pain this time, peace. Hours passed before she finally pulled out her camera again. She pointed it toward the sunset, her voice trembling but steady. "Hey, it's Emily. I'm not at home today. I'm here by the ocean, where the waves remind me that no matter how far we fall, we always come back. Life has a rhythm, just like the sea rise, fall, rise again." She smiled through her tears. Sometimes, we think healing means forgetting. But maybe, healing means remembering without breaking. She sat there quietly, the camera still rolling, as the last light of the sun disappeared. Then she whispered one last line. "Wherever you are watching from, thank you. Thank you for walking beside me, even when I couldn't walk on my own." And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Heartline Stories. Tell me where you're from and what keeps your heart alive. Because together, we keep the light burning. She stopped recording, but didn't move. The sky above her turned deep purple, stars blinking like promises. She felt the ocean breeze brush through her hair and smiled again. In that silence, she thought of every night she had cried herself to sleep, every fear that had once caged her. But now those fears felt smaller, not gone, just softer. They no longer controlled her. Back at her hotel, Emily uploaded the video. Within hours, the comments began to flood in again. People from all over the world, India, Brazil, Pakistan, America, the Philippines, writing the same thing in different languages. "Thank you for giving me hope. I watched this with my mom, we both cried. Your story helped me speak to my father after years." She leaned back on her bed, phone in her hand, heart full. The girl who had once felt invisible was now a voice echoing across continents. But Emily didn't see fame. She saw healing. She saw the power of human hearts connecting through shared pain. As she drifted to sleep, the last thing she whispered was, "This is what I was meant to do." And somewhere deep in her soul, she knew the story wasn't ending. It was just beginning again, stronger, braver, and filled with light. The soft glow of morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains as Emily woke up to the quiet hum of her phone vibrating on the bedside table. The previous night's upload had already crossed 1 million views. But what mattered more to her wasn't the number, it was the messages. Thousands of souls who found comfort in her words, strangers who felt seen because of her story. She sat up slowly, running her fingers through her hair, her heart both calm and trembling. Every time she opened her channel, she still felt that flicker of fear. What if today they stop listening? What if my story isn't enough? But then she remembered the ocean, the sound of the waves whispering her name, and she smiled. She had promised herself that she would live with courage now, not the loud kind that shouts, but the quiet kind that stays even when the world turns away. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her old friend, Noah. Emily, I saw your latest video. I can't believe how far you've come. Proud of you. She stared at the screen, her eyes softening. It had been years since she last spoke to him. He was there back when everything fell apart, when she left home, when she thought no one cared. She typed back, her fingers hesitating before sending. Thank you, Noah. It's been a long road. I didn't think I'd ever find my voice again. He replied almost instantly. You never lost it, Em. You just needed to remember who you were. The message made her chest tighten. It was strange how a few simple words could pull her back into moments she had buried deep inside. Memories of laughter, long talks, promises they once made under the stars. But those times were gone now. Still, the warmth of that friendship lingered, a reminder that even broken connections can leave light behind. She decided to take a walk outside. The city was alive, buzzing with morning sounds, people rushing to work, coffee shops opening, a busker singing a love song on the corner. She watched them, smiling softly. Every face carried a story, a secret struggle, a dream. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible among them. She was part of something bigger, a shared humanity that connected every heartbeat. Her phone rang again, this time from her manager, Zoe. Emily, you won't believe this. A podcast from New York wants to feature you. They said your story has inspired thousands. They want you to share your journey. Emily froze. Her heart raced. Me? On a podcast? Zoe, I'm not ready for that. You are, Zoe said firmly. The world is ready to hear you. Emily sat on a bench, staring at her reflection in a store window. For a moment, the old fear crept in, the trembling voice, the doubts whispering that she wasn't good enough. But she took a deep breath. The same voice that once broke in pain now carried power. I'll do it, she said quietly. That night, she recorded the podcast from her room. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, it steadied like a candle learning to stand against the wind. She talked about losing herself, about nights spent crying alone, about how she had almost given up. And then, she spoke about finding courage, the kind that doesn't erase fear but walks beside it. The host asked her, Emily, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? Emily smiled softly, eyes glistening. I'd tell her that being lost doesn't mean the end. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. I'd tell her to keep believing because one day, even her pain will turn into light for someone else. There was silence for a moment, that kind of silence that holds meaning. The host whispered, That's beautiful. After the podcast, Emily sat in her room again, her heart calm but full. She opened her comments. Messages flooded in from people all around the world. I cried listening to you. Thank you for speaking my heart. You made me believe in myself again. I lost my father last year. Your story helped me breathe again. Each message felt like a heartbeat, a reminder that words could heal more than she ever imagined. Later that night, she went live again. The screen lit up with hearts, usernames, and kind words. Her voice was gentle but filled with power. Hey everyone, she began softly. Thank you for coming back again. I've read your messages, every single one. You don't know how much it means to me. You are the reason I keep doing this. She paused, eyes shimmering. Sometimes I still get scared before turning on this camera. I still ask myself, who am I to speak about hope? But then I remember, I'm just like you. A person who fell, who cried, who almost gave up. And if I can rise again, so can you. Her tone softened even more, her voice trembling as she continued, wherever you are watching from, whether it's your bedroom, your car, or somewhere far away, I want you to know, you're not alone. You never were. Even when it felt like no one cared, someone up there was writing your story with love. She placed a hand on her chest and whispered, You matter. Please don't forget that. The live chat slowed again, people sending hearts and tears. The screen was filled with love. Emily smiled, blinking away her own tears. If this story touched you, please subscribe to Heartline Stories. I want you to be part of this journey with me. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that my voice reaches hearts across oceans. She exhaled softly, whispering her final line. Thank you for watching. And remember, even in the darkest night, your light still matters. As the stream ended, she leaned back and closed her eyes. Outside her window, the moon shone brighter than usual. The city noise faded into a soft lullaby. She thought of Noah, of the ocean, of all the people whose lives had touched hers. And deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was another beginning. She whispered to herself, tomorrow I'll keep going. Not because I have to, but because I want to. And with that, she smiled through the quiet, her heart finally at peace, a heart that once broke in silence now beating strong enough to heal the world. The night felt endless, the air outside her window humming softly with the sound of distant rain. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the glow of her laptop screen. Her newest video was uploading, the one she had filmed after that emotional live stream. The title read, What Healing Really Feels Like. It wasn't a story of perfection, it was a confession of scars, one she had poured her entire soul into. She watched the progress bar inch forward 74%, 89%, 100%. A deep breath left her chest. She pressed publish. The moment the button clicked, she felt that familiar rush of anxiety, the quiet fear of being seen. Every time she shared a part of herself, she felt like she was standing naked before the world. What if they didn't understand this one? What if they stopped believing in her message? But then, she reminded herself, truth doesn't need everyone to understand it. It only needs the right hearts to feel it. The first comment came in just minutes later. I've been crying for 20 minutes. Thank you for making me feel human again. Then another. Emily, your words saved me tonight. And another. You don't even know me, but somehow you know exactly what I feel. Emily covered her face with her hands, tears slipping through her fingers. Each message felt like a small miracle, proof that even broken hearts can speak languages that others understand. The next morning, her phone buzzed again. Zoe calling. Emily, you won't believe this. Your video was featured on Voices That Heal. They called you the heart of the internet. Do you know what this means? Emily froze, blinking back disbelief. Her voice cracked. Zoe, I didn't do this for fame. I just wanted to help people feel less alone. And that's exactly why it's working, Zoe said. They can feel it. The honesty. The emotion. It's real. Emily sat silently for a moment. It felt unreal, like a dream she never planned to have. For years she had hidden from her voice, and now the world was echoing it back to her. She whispered, then let's keep going. There are more hearts out there waiting to be heard. That day, she decided to film something different. Not just her story, but the stories of others. She wanted to give her audience a space to speak, to be heard, to breathe. She put up a post. Tell me your story, the one you've never told anyone. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. Within hours, hundreds of messages flooded in. People from every corner of the world, from small towns, big cities, quiet villages. Stories of heartbreak, hope, survival. A mother who lost her son and still sends him birthday messages every year. A soldier who came home but couldn't find peace. A teenager who wrote letters to her future self, promising she'd keep fighting. Emily read every message through tears. She felt their pain like her own, but she also felt their courage. She decided that her next video would be called Letters from the Brave. The camera rolled as she began to speak, her voice steady but emotional. Tonight, I don't want to tell you my story, she said softly. I want to tell you yours. She began reading their letters aloud, her voice breaking, trembling, sometimes completely silent between sentences. These are not just stories, she whispered. They are lives. They are proof that even when it hurts, the human heart keeps beating. When the video went live, it exploded. The comment section became a sea of emotion, people replying to each other, comforting strangers, building connections. It was no longer just her story, it was their story. A week later, Emily received an email. It was from a young girl named Anna, only 16. The message began simply. I was going to end everything last month. Then I found your video. It felt like someone finally saw me. I'm still here because of you. Emily froze, her hand over her mouth, eyes filling with tears. She read the message again and again until the words blurred. Her breath trembled as she whispered, This is why I do it. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying Anna's words. For so long, Emily had believed her pain was meaningless, that her silence was safer. But now she knew every tear she had cried had built a bridge to someone else's survival. The next morning, she recorded another video. No script. No setup. Just raw truth. Hi, she began softly, eyes red from lack of sleep. I got a message today. From a girl named Anna. She said my story helped her stay alive. And I can't stop thinking about it. Because for years, I thought my pain was useless. But now I see, maybe our deepest wounds are meant to light someone else's path. Her voice broke, but she kept going. If you're watching this and you feel invisible, please don't disappear. The world needs your story, even if it's messy, even if it's unfinished. You have no idea who might be waiting for your light. Tears rolled freely down her face. I'm not just talking to a screen anymore. I'm talking to you. To the person who needs this right now. Please stay. The comments poured in like rain. People writing, I'll stay. Thousands of them. From different countries, different time zones, but all saying the same thing. That night, Emily stood by her window, staring at the glowing city lights below. She whispered softly, We're all broken pieces of the same heart, aren't we? Her reflection looked back at her tired, fragile, but filled with fire. The fear that once ruled her was now something she walked beside, hand in hand. It didn't disappear, it transformed. And as she turned off the lights and sat in silence, she felt something new, not just peace, but purpose. The kind of purpose that doesn't come from views or followers, but from knowing she was making the world a little softer. Before sleeping, she picked up her camera one more time and recorded a short clip. Hey, this is Emily. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Heartline Stories. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what gives you hope. Because you're not just watching a story, you're part of one. She smiled through her tears, whispering, Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing, and thank you for staying. As the screen faded to black, her voice echoed, trembling but strong, like a promise that would never fade. The room was silent except for the soft hum of her computer screen. The new video, Letters from the Brave, Part 2, had just gone live, and already thousands of people were watching. Emily sat in her chair, staring at the stream of comments flying across the screen. Each one felt like a heartbeat, a reminder that somewhere out there, someone was healing. Someone was choosing life again. But behind her calm smile, something heavy stirred inside her. The more she gave her heart to the world, the more she realized how much it took from her. Every story she read, every message of pain and loss, she felt it deeply. Sometimes too deeply. She could almost hear the echoes of their cries in her own chest. She closed her laptop slowly and walked toward the window. The city outside glowed under the streetlights, cars moving like veins of light, rain softly painting the glass. How do I carry all of this? She whispered to herself. How do I hold everyone's pain when I'm still learning to hold my own? Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, but still burning with quiet courage. The kind that comes after breaking, not before it. She pressed her hand to the glass, as if trying to touch the world beyond it. You're not alone, she said softly, the same words she told her viewers, but tonight, they were for her. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, but this one wasn't from a stranger. It was from Anna, the 16-year-old girl who had written to her weeks ago. Hey Emily, I wanted to tell you something. I talked to my mom today for the first time in months. We cried, but it felt real. Thank you for teaching me that pain doesn't mean the end. Emily smiled through tears. She typed back, I'm proud of you, Anna. You're stronger than you think. She set the phone down and let out a trembling breath. That one message erased 1,000 fears. It reminded her that even small ripples could create waves. Maybe she didn't have to carry everything. Maybe she just had to love fiercely, and that would be enough. The next morning, she got a call from Zoe. "Emily, are you sitting down? I just got an email. The United Voices Foundation wants to feature your story in their annual documentary. They want to fly you to Los Angeles next week." Emily froze mid-step, heart pounding. "Los Angeles? Zoe, that's huge." "I know," Zoe said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "They said they've never seen a story touch this many lives in such a short time. They called you the voice of quiet courage." Emily sat on the edge of her bed, eyes wide. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. She looked around her small apartment, the same walls that had witnessed her breakdowns, her tears, her long nights of silence. I don't know if I deserve this," she whispered. Zoe's voice softened. "Emily, you don't have to deserve it. You lived it. You earned it." When the call ended, Emily sat there for a long time. Her hands trembled slightly. This was everything she had once dreamed of, and yet, fear still lingered. What if she failed? What if people met her in person and realized she wasn't as strong as her videos made her seem? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. No masks, no pretending. She promised herself that she would go as she was, imperfect, real, raw. A week later, she found herself sitting on a plane for the first time in years. The city lights below looked like stars fallen to earth. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. She looked out the window and whispered, "I'm doing it, Mom. I'm really doing it." The flight attendant smiled as she passed by. "First time flying?" Emily nodded. "First time chasing something that doesn't scare me." When she landed in Los Angeles, everything felt unreal. Cameras, lights, people greeting her with warmth and admiration. Yet, beneath it all, she felt a strange calm. She wasn't here to perform, she was here to tell the truth. The interviewer asked her, "Emily, millions of people see you as an inspiration. How does that make you feel?" She smiled softly. "It makes me grateful, but also human. Because I still have bad days. I still cry. I still question myself. But maybe that's what healing really is, learning to walk with your pain instead of running from it." The interviewer leaned forward. "What would you say to someone watching this right now who feels hopeless?" Emily took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I'd say, I know that feeling. The nights when you can't breathe. The mornings when you wish you hadn't woken up. But please don't give up. Because even the smallest spark of hope is still light. And one day, that light will be enough to guide you home." There was silence on set. Even the crew members stood still, their eyes glistening. In that moment, Emily wasn't just a storyteller, she was a mirror, reflecting the strength of every person who had ever survived the storm. When the interview ended, she stepped outside into the sunlight. The air felt different here, warmer, freer. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." That night, she recorded a message for her channel from her hotel balcony. The city sparkled behind her like a sea of dreams. Her voice was soft but alive. "Hey everyone, it's Emily. I'm in LA tonight, and honestly, I still can't believe this is real. I used to think my story didn't matter. But now I see, it's not just my story. It's ours. Every tear, every broken piece, every moment we thought we wouldn't make it, it all brought us here." She paused, looking straight into the lens. So, if you're watching this, wherever you are, please remember, you have a story too. And maybe one day, your story will help someone else find their light. Don't hide it. Share it. Her eyes shimmered with emotion as she added, "If this message touched your heart, please subscribe to Heartline Stories. Leave a comment telling me where you're from and what keeps you going. I read every single one. You're not just my viewers, you're my family." She smiled, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for believing. And thank you for walking with me on this journey." She ended the video, letting the camera capture one last shot, her standing on the balcony, the wind brushing her hair, her eyes full of tears and light. As the night deepened, Emily stood there, breathing in the vastness of it all. The fear, the hope, the courage, it all existed together now. She didn't need to fight her pain anymore. She had learned to dance with it. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "You made it, Emily. You didn't just survive. You became." The night breeze wrapped around her shoulders as Emily stood on the balcony, staring at the glowing city below. The sound of distant laughter, honking cars, and soft music from a nearby cafe blended into something strangely peaceful. Her video had just gone live. She could already feel it, the wave of connections spreading through the world. Notifications were lighting up her phone like constellations. Comments, messages, hearts. Every word from strangers carried warmth. You gave me hope again. I was about to give up, but your story stopped me. She smiled through tears, whispering, "You're the reason I keep going." But when the lights faded and the screen dimmed, the silence crept back in, that same deep silence that used to scare her. She leaned against the railing, eyes closed. The city seemed endless, and for a moment, she wondered how someone like her, once broken, once afraid, had come this far. The air smelled like rain and possibility. Her phone buzzed again. It was Zoe. "Emily, are you watching the numbers? It's insane. You just crossed 1 million views in less than 12 hours. Emily blinked in disbelief. 1 million. Yes. And not just views, donations, letters, interviews. People want to share their stories because of you. You started something real, Em. Something huge." Her voice shook. "Zoe, I don't even know what to say." "Say thank you and keep going," Zoe said softly. "Because this is only the beginning." Emily hung up, still trembling. For so long, she'd been afraid of being seen. Now, the world was not just seeing her, it was healing with her. The next morning, she walked along the beach before sunrise. The waves rolled in softly, brushing against her feet like an old friend. She breathed in deeply, feeling the salt and the wind. It reminded her of her mother, how they used to walk by the lake when she was little, how her mother would whisper, "Whenever you feel lost, come back to the water." It always remembers. Emily knelt down and touched the cold water. "I'm home," she whispered. Behind her, a voice called, "Emily." She turned around. It was Daniel, the documentary producer she had met the day before. "Didn't expect to see you up this early," he said, smiling. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. "Too many thoughts, too many feelings." He nodded, stepping closer. "That's how you know you're alive." They both stood quietly, watching the horizon. The first light of dawn began to spread across the ocean, gold and pink, fragile but unstoppable. Daniel looked at her and said, "You know, when we filmed your interview, there was this moment you went quiet for a few seconds. Everyone thought you forgot your line. But I saw something in your eyes. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was truth." Emily tilted her head. "Truth." "Yeah," he said. "The kind people spend their whole lives running from." Her throat tightened. She looked down, whispering, "I wasn't trying to be brave. I was just tired of pretending." He smiled gently. "That's what bravery really is." For a long moment, they just stood there, two souls, quietly breathing in the rhythm of the world. Later that day, Emily sat in the quiet of her hotel room, reading more messages. One caught her eye, from a man named Michael in Canada. "Emily, I lost my wife last year. I didn't think I'd ever feel again. But after hearing your words, I took my guitar out for the first time in months. I played her favorite song. I cried, but it felt right. Thank you for reminding me that love never leaves." She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the ache of beauty in those words. Every story she received became a thread, and together, they were weaving something far greater than pain. That night, she recorded a new video, no script, no lights, just her voice in the dark. "Hi everyone. I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling tonight. It's like the world is whispering back. I used to think I was speaking to you, but now I know we've been speaking with each other all along." Her voice cracked as she continued. "There was a time when I thought my story ended the day I broke. But now I see that was just the beginning. Sometimes you have to shatter before you can shine. Sometimes you have to lose everything before you understand what really matters." She paused, breathing deeply. "If you're watching this right now, I want you to promise me something. Don't stop showing up for yourself. Even when it hurts. Even when you're tired. The world still needs your voice." She wiped her eyes and smiled softly. "And if you're new here, welcome to Heartline Stories. This isn't just a channel, it's a family. So if you feel alone, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, share your story in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from. Let's remind the world that broken hearts still beat. Her tone shifted, calm, hopeful, glowing with warmth. I'm proud of you. Even if we've never met, I want you to know that. You made it through another day, and that's enough. You're enough. She ended the recording and, for a moment, just sat there in the quiet, the soft blue light from her laptop glowing against her face. Then she whispered to herself, "Thank you for staying, world. Thank you for hearing me." Hours later, as she scrolled through her notifications, she noticed one message that made her freeze. It was from her father, the man she hadn't spoken to in almost 10 years. It simply said, "Emily, I watched your story. I cried. I'm sorry for the years I wasn't there. If you're ready, I'd like to see you again." Her heart stopped. Tears blurred her vision. She reread the message over and over, her breath trembling. For years she had carried the weight of that absence, the anger, the silence. And now here it was, the beginning of forgiveness. She typed slowly, her fingers shaking. "I'd like that too, Dad. I'm ready." And for the first time in years, she didn't feel broken anymore. She felt whole, not because the pain was gone, but because she had learned to live with it. She looked out at the city one last time before bed, the lights still flickering like tiny hopes in the dark, and whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll go home." Her voice cracked as she added softly, "But this time, someone will be waiting." And somewhere inside her chest, a quiet peace finally settled, the kind that doesn't shout, but simply stays. The morning light spilled gently through the curtains, painting the room in shades of gold and peace. Emily woke slowly, her heart still heavy from the message she had read the night before. Her father's words echoed in her mind, "I'd like to see you again." She had dreamed of hearing that for years, imagined it 1,000 times, but now that it was real, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt fragile. It felt human. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and whispered to herself, "It's time." For so long, she had been running from the idea of home, that small house by the old oak tree, the broken windows, the silence that used to scream louder than words. But today, she wasn't running. Today, she was walking toward it, toward forgiveness, toward peace, toward the version of herself that never stopped hoping. As she packed her bag, her hands trembled. She placed her camera gently inside, next to her notebook. It wasn't just her luggage she was carrying, it was every tear, every sleepless night, every whisper of courage she had gathered over the years. Outside, the sky was soft and clear. The taxi waited. She took one last look at the hotel room, the place where her story had turned into a voice, and closed the door behind her. The road to her hometown was long and quiet. Fields stretched endlessly on both sides, golden with sunlight. She leaned her head against the window, watching memories pass by like ghosts, her mother's laughter, her father's voice calling her name, the night she had left with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of questions. As the car turned onto the familiar dirt road, her heart began to race. The house appeared slowly smaller than she remembered, older, worn, but still standing. The garden was wild now, the flowers tangled and free. The taxi stopped. Emily took a deep breath, paid the driver, and stepped out. The wind brushed against her face like a whisper from the past. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen between yesterday and today. Then, the front door creaked open. Her father stood there. His hair was gray now, his face lined with years of regret. He didn't speak, not at first. His eyes, wet and trembling, searched hers like someone afraid to believe this was real. Emily swallowed hard. "Hi, Dad." He took a slow step forward. "Emily," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You came back." "I told you I was ready," she said softly. And then, without another word, they both moved, closing the distance, holding each other for the first time in a decade. The world seemed to go silent around them. The pain, the lost years, the anger, it all melted into that single embrace. He whispered against her hair, "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know how to face what I'd done." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. You don't have to say sorry anymore. I just wanted you to see me, to know that I made it, that I'm okay. He pulled back, looking at her with trembling pride. You didn't just make it, Emily. You became light. She smiled through tears. Maybe that light was always yours too, Dad. They walked inside. The house smelled the same old wood, dust, and faint traces of her mother's lavender perfume. On the shelf was a framed photo of the three of them, still standing after all those years. Her father noticed her looking at it and said quietly, I could never take it down. Emily reached out, tracing her mother's face in the photo. She'd be happy we're here, she said. She would, he replied. She always said you'd find your way back, not to this house, but to your heart. They spent hours talking, about lost time, about her videos, about how she had found her voice when words once felt impossible. He told her how he'd watched every video she ever uploaded, quietly, without commenting, just listening. It was like hearing your mother again, he said softly. As the afternoon sun faded, they sat outside on the porch. The sky blazed orange and pink, and for the first time in years, Emily felt the world slow down. Her father handed her an old guitar, the same one he used to play when she was little. Remember this? He asked. She smiled faintly. Of course. He strummed a few chords, his hands a little shaky. Your mom used to sing while I played, he said. Maybe you can sing for her tonight. Emily took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began to sing softly, a lullaby her mother used to hum. Her father joined in quietly, their voices blending, fragile but full. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When the last note faded, there was silence. The kind that doesn't hurt anymore, the kind that heals. As the stars began to appear, Emily set up her camera one last time. She looked into the lens, eyes glistening but calm. Hi everyone, she said softly. This video is different. I'm not in a studio, not in a city. I'm home. And tonight, I'm not just telling a story, I'm living one. She glanced toward her father, who smiled from the porch. Sometimes life doesn't give you the ending you expected, she continued, but it gives you the one you needed. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's remembering without pain. It's looking at someone and seeing love instead of loss. She paused, letting her words breathe. To everyone watching, if you're hurting, if you're waiting for someone to come back, or if you're scared to forgive, this is your sign. Reach out. Go home. Even if home is just a feeling inside you. She smiled softly. And if this is your first time here, welcome to Heartline Stories. I'm Emily, and I share pieces of life that remind us that hearts can break, heal, and still shine. So don't forget to subscribe, share your story, and tell me where you're watching from. You're not alone. Not anymore. She looked out at the stars, her voice barely a whisper now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying. And thank you for believing in me. She turned off the camera and leaned back in her chair. Her father handed her a cup of tea, and they both sat quietly, watching the stars scatter across the night sky. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying the sound of laughter, the scent of home, and the promise of tomorrow. Emily closed her eyes, a small smile on her lips. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was chasing something, she felt like she had finally arrived. And somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice whispered, "The story isn't ending. It's beginning again."